Welcome to the 63rd edition of 805 Sports Talk, and this week the talk of the town has been Rigetti graduate Matt Sauer being selected in the second round of the MLB draft by the New York Yankees. I spent the evening at the Sauer home Monday night. It was quite a night, a little bit of waiting, a couple phone calls, a little bit of nervousness, but in the end it was just pure joy from the Sauers. Matt was not really a big Yankee fan growing up. He admitted that, and he kind of owned it on Twitter that he had some bad tweets about the Yankees previously, but he couldn't be more happy to be in the New York Yankees organization. And covering him over the last couple of years, I couldn't be more happy for him. He covered a lot of athletes, a lot of baseball players, but I think this guy's a real deal. Matt, great teammate, great leader on the field, great athlete as well, playing all over the field, but he's going to be a pitcher in the New York Yankees organization. I think that's a great fit for him. He's a strong kid, a strong right-handed pitcher, great stuff, and he's kind of exploded the last, maybe 8 to 10 months on the scene. He was probably going to be looking like a third, fourth, maybe fifth round pick before the season started, but he has just taken off. 54th overall pick, got a nice little signing bonus deal that they're going to work out. Sounded like he's definitively going to go to the Yankees, sign, and forego his college where he had committed to Arizona, which I think is a good move. It's going to be a lot of fun following him the next several years and watching his development. I talked to his catcher, Zach Anderson, afterward, and Anderson is confident that Sauer will be in that rotation in New York at some point and could be the ace of that staff. So I wouldn't be surprised with the makeup he has mentally. Physically, he's extremely gifted, 6'4", legitimate 6'4", 200 pounds, and I think he's going to, fill out a little bit more, and I think he's going to have a bright future. Kenny, you covered him, very closely over the years. You saw him pitch, saw him play in the field. How do you think he's going to do at New York, and just how do you feel about him being selected in the second round?
I could not be happier for him. I'm a little unhappy for me since the Yankees you love the Yankees, but they are the team I hate the most in the major leagues. Now I'll root for them whenever he starts, and against him otherwise. But I think he has the makeup to be successful. He has a fastball that's consistently the 90s. He did rely on that kind of a lot, but I think he'll develop other pitches just fine. His teammates love him. He was a natural leader. The last game he pitched in his high school career, I saw him. I don't think a pitcher could have pitched much better. 10 strikeouts, I think it was, a 3-hit complete game, and a 1-0 victory.
Yeah, that playoff game in Lancaster against Paraclete. Great way to end his pitching career. They made the championship game, and unfortunately for the Warriors, they did lose to Walnut in that championship game, but a great postseason run this year, and he was great in the playoffs last year, and Sauer's a workhorse, dude. Brian Tomoka called on him time and time again. Every time Matt Sauer answered the bell, and I think he's going to kind of continue that. He's going to play some rookie ball. It's going to be a process. You got to be patient with these high school pitchers, so hopefully he has a healthy and bright future ahead of him. Lorenzo, you're familiar with Matt as well. You've seen him pitch. You've seen him play. They had a great tournament this year where they play at Elks, which was a lot of fun for you to cover. How do you feel about him being a New York Yankee now?
It's a perfect storm for him. I mean, the fact that there's so much rich tradition, and obviously the Yankees are looking for that replacement guy for the Rocket, Mariano Rivera, but he's going into an outstanding situation. Granted, yeah, we know playing in New York, there's the high scrutiny, the high expectations, but he was pretty scrutinized here with all the press that he was giving, not only from us but just about anywhere else. But in talking with Sauer, he just seemed like he had this low-key demeanor, like not really like wanting to be in the spotlight sort of thing, which is saying a lot, because normally when you get those athletes who get that kind of attention, sometimes they kind of gobble it up. Well, Sauer just stayed neutral the whole time. We also should add this, that there's one other guy who may not be a fan of Sauer going to the Yankees, and that's Mr. Elliott Stern. But I'm sure just like you, Kenny, he's gonna
avid Red Sox fan.
Yeah, he's gonna appreciate the fact that when Sauer is on the mound, even if he's against the Red Sox, he's going to cheer on Mr. Sauer. And, when he takes on the team that Sauer cheers for.
If it's a Game 7 playoffs, we'll see.
And when Sauer takes on the team I cheer for and the team he cheered for, the Angels, I mean, I had to roll with Sauer as well as Danny Duffy as well.
Yeah, and it couldn't have worked out more perfectly for Sauer and the family. We're there Monday night, and the Angels are hosting the Yankees in a series, and when I was there's talk that the family was going to be flown out, or however, taken out to Angel Stadium to see the Yankees play the Angels. So that was a pretty cool. I mean, it must have been a weird feeling to be an Angel fans being drafted by the Yankees, and then seeing the Yankees play at Angel Stadium would have been a weird thing. But they couldn't have handled it better, and especially Matt. He was pretty laid back. He was a little nervous during the draft, but he was fielding some phone calls from his representation. Kind of getting a feel for what was going to happen. This kid was definitely a first-round talent, but the Yankees came in and said, we want to lock this kid up. We want to offer him a very generous signing bonus. So they wanted to be taken by the Yankees there, and that's how it played out. And I think it's a good fit for him, and just kind of keeping an eye on him during the draft. He was just relaxed, kind of joking around like he did during games in the dugout, goofing around, and he was pretty much relaxed, but he would be, kind of checking his phone, waiting to see if he's, being contacted, and keeping an eye on the draft. So I think he handled everything very well.
And he has the potential to be like one of those next cornerstone guys on the Yankees, because as we know, Aaron Judge has been all the buzz for New York, especially considering that he's a Fresno State Bulldog. And I mean, maybe Sauer also joins in on that young cornerstone building blocks that the Yankees are trying to implement.
Yeah, we see the Yankees, not shying away from the West Coast kids, with Judge, being from Northern California, playing at Fresno State, and Matt Sauer, a high school kid out here in California, getting selected. So we see that the Yankees are definitely working on their, nationwide scouting, which is good to see. But Sauer being selected isn't the only big, marquee news in the area. Rodney Michael, a standout soccer player at Dunn School, landed the Gatorade State Player of the Year award honors. That's the second Dunn guy in the last 3 years to land that award. We saw Abu Dunladi, who went on to play at UCLA, got that award, but Abu also got the national award as well, and that still hasn't been decided yet or announced yet by Gatorade. So Rodney Michael is in the running for that, but at least he is the State Player of the Year. Lorenzo, you saw him play. You saw him sign with UCSB. How good of a story is this, seeing Rodney Michael land this award?
Just an amazing story. I mean, if anybody's not familiar with the backstory of Mr. Michael, he comes all the way from Sierra Leone, which we know, unfortunately, gets in the news sometimes for the wrong reasons. Well, he made his trek. He took up soccer, immediately fell in love with Dunn and the atmosphere, the family first vibe that he was given. And just when you see him on the soccer field, it's almost like seeing a slot receiver go to work, but with a soccer ball. Just fast, energetic, and I know UC Santa Barbara is probably going to have a lot of fun trying to figure out how to use Michael, and pretty soon he'll be teammates with Julian Araujo, who also signed with UC Santa Barbara. But just an amazing story, and amazing for Dunn as well, because you very rarely hear about talented marquee athletes coming from that school, but you mentioned Abu, and now we can mention Rodney in that same echelon.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, see who is the National Gatorade Player of the Year in soccer. But Kenny, you also saw him play. Dunn went on to win the Division VI championship in, I think it was April that they wrapped that up. You saw them play during the playoffs. How good is this kid?
Oh, he's every bit as good as getting the Gatorade National Player of the Year. He's in the middle of everything. He is so quick, rather it be on defense and offense. I read in your story that an opposing coach said that he was quicker on the ball than his defenders were off the ball. That's what struck me about Michael. He's just so quick, and just the nose for the ball. Like I said, he's in the middle of everything. He's a constant headache for an opponent.
Yeah, and he's going to be playing locally at UCSB, so that's good. And with him being from Sierra Leone, that's also makes it a great story. So a deserving player and a great story as well, with Rodney Michael getting that Gatorade State Player of the Year. We cover a bunch of stuff here: high schools, colleges, all that good stuff. But we also love our youth baseball, and that's what time it is. In June, Little League stuff is turning up. We saw the city tournament, and we got All-Stars coming up. So and even Babe Ruth, Lorenzo, over there in Lompoc, a lot of Babe Ruth stuff going on. The city loves that Lompoc end-of-season tournament over there. But Kenny, you were following the Little League tournaments. How's the level of play looking? Who were some top players that you saw stand out? I know Bo Garcia looked pretty good over there at Westside.
He was the one who stood out.
Who were some guys that stood out, and what you've seen so far?
Matthew Rivas for the Westside Indians was also a very solid player. And the Orchid American Yankees, they didn't have any really spectacular looking players, but they had several that made pretty significant contributions. In fact, a substitute for them, Trenton Kim, hit a 3-run home run in the Orchid championship game. That I would say Bo Garcia is the most dominant player I've seen so far. I've been impressed with their catcher Ivan Ochoa. Unfortunately, he played the whole game with an injured hand. I was impressed. Bo took a lot of his pitches in the last 2 innings of the Santa Maria championship game, specifically to protect Ivan's hand. So we'll see how that develops. As you said, it's a busy time. We have 4 youth tournaments about to go.
Yeah, it's definitely going down on the youth baseball side. You've been over there in Lompoc, Lorenzo. What have you seen over there? How's the level of play looking? Who's been really standing out as a team over there? What have you seen over there in Lompoc?
You know, to me, it's a wide open race. I mean, granted, you have the 2-time champions, the Chemical kids, who are going to play later today. They're still in the running, but you know, B&J Trucking, they seem really fueled over the fact that they were the runner-up last year. They made it clear they don't want to share the title. They don't want to fall short this time, and they've been energized by a name we're probably familiar with, Oscar Rojas, who was a freshman on the Lompoc varsity this past season. And it's funny because his coach Jeff Ray, who's the father of Jeffrey Ray, he mentioned how this past season at Lompoc, Rojas was the young guy, but now at B&J Trucking, he's the old guy. But you know, just the way he plays and the ability he brings on the diamond, the team feeds off of that. Matt Gonzalez, who's with the Chemical kids, is another one who is really that horse that just drives everything. And then I'll also add Ryan Morgan of the Medics. I mean, he had a very respectable tournament. Granted, the Medics are no longer in the tournament, but you know, it'll be interesting to see which sport Morgan chooses down the road, because he's one of those rare 3-sport athletes, especially in the main sports with football, basketball, and baseball.
Yeah, I do love to see that in the Babe Ruth season. You see guys, you know, play baseball at high school for the high school teams, and then they move over to the Babe Ruth season and keep playing, so that's always fun. And they're always kind of the young guys on the high school team, then they go over to Babe Ruth and they're older, kind of dominant guys, which is a lot of fun to see. And also in Lompoc, which is cool, is the team names. They stuck with those sponsorship names, the Chem Kids, the Elks,
Tom's Burgers.
I think they have like Biggie's Hurricanes or whatever it is out there, and B&J Trucking. Yeah, all that stuff is cool that they still kind of keep those names. A lot of leagues will just switch to, you know, the MLB team names, but over there in Lompoc, we still got the cool sponsor names.
And the funny thing is that with Tom's Burgers, I asked one kid, well, if you guys win the whole thing, what's the first thing you're going to do? And they said, we're going to celebrate at Tom's Burgers.
Yeah, it's a cool thing that kind of represents Lompoc. You see, they kind of have that throwback to their old school ways and still have that tight community bond with those sponsorships.
It's a nice hometown feel.
Yeah,
that
I like
they
that.
keep their, so do I, that they
I like
keep
that
their
part.
sponsors' names.
Moving on to the national scene, we got the NBA Finals, which wrapped up earlier this week. People weren't sure what to expect with the finals. Warriors had been dominant. I think they were, 12-0 before the finals. And then started out with a great series against the Cavs, took a loss, and then bounced back in Game 5 to wrap up a 4-1 win and go, 16-1, something like that?
16-1.
16-1 throughout the playoffs. Kenny, I'll start with you. What did you think about the Warriors and their run? Is this the greatest team that's ever been? They didn't have, the win record this year, but they just dominated the playoffs.
Oh, it's hard to me, it's always hard to say which team was the greatest ever and so forth and so on. But what strikes me about these teams is it could be these guys for at least the next few years. They both have young teams. I would really like to see both teams going at each other when they're both at full strength. I think the first year Kyrie Irving was out the whole series, or at least most of the series. Last year, Steph Curry did play, but he was obviously not at 100% for the full series. And this time, Andrew Bogut is a Cav for about a minute before he gets hurt and his season is over. So maybe next year we get to see both of these two at full strength. They're so clearly head and shoulders above everyone else in the league. Kevin Durant, I don't think he's the best player in the world yet, but he was during the NBA Finals. He was beyond phenomenal.
Yeah, I would take Kevin Durant over Kobe Bryant through their careers. If I want a player, I'll take Kevin Durant over Kobe. I would take LeBron over Kobe. I think people over here in California, especially this area, just love Kobe Bryant. I think he's a bit overrated. He was a great player, great scorer. But, you know, I think Kevin Durant does more. I think he did more in these playoffs than what Kobe's done. You know, I think Kobe needed that other player to help him with Shaq, and then we saw Paul Gasol and Lamar Odom and Andrew Bynum. I think LeBron's done more on his own than Kobe did. I think a lot of people kind of remember Kobe and then Jordan as like these perfect guys, but they had their flaws as well, and they kind of latch on to LeBron's flaws a little bit too much and Durant's. But I would take both those guys over a guy like Kobe and maybe MJ. I don't know. MJ is like pretty lethal with what he did in closing out championships, but you know, I love what Kevin Durant did this year. I'm not a huge Kevin Durant fan, but you know, he kind of showed a lot of people what he's all about in these NBA Finals and this playoffs as a whole. So that was cool to see. Lorenzo, how do you feel about the NBA Finals and the Warriors? You know, pretty much dominating the Cavs.
I would take MJ over all those guys you mentioned. All right, 6 rings, and I mean, there's no real argument for me. But you know what? I'll give a lot of credit to Kevin Durant. I mean, he had that backlash. He had people saying, "Oh, it's like." You lose to the dominant team, then all of a sudden you want to play for them. Well, now when we see what happened at Oklahoma City with Westbrook, now it all makes sense. And we see the structure that Golden State has, it now makes sense. He wanted a team first atmosphere, not an atmosphere where it was more about who could score the most points. So, you know, credit to Durant. I love that Nike commercial that aired right after the finals about debate this. And I think in terms of Cleveland, I mean, I wouldn't fret so much if you're a Cavaliers fan about, you know, what direction they go to, especially to get Bogut healthy again. That being said, I feel like that they really don't need to dive into free agency. Obviously, you hear a name like Paul George or Jimmy Butler. Well, I feel like the pieces are still in place to continue to develop that team and continue as the counter to Golden State.
Yeah, I think Kevin Love was good throughout the season and the playoffs, but he was really bad in that Game 5. and he had like 6 points or something like that, like 2 of 8 shooting.
He does have really bad stretches. I would keep him though.
Yeah, I'm a big Kevin Love fan, but you know, he's got to show up when they need him in those big spots.
And I feel like when I look at LeBron, I've always felt that when I look at LeBron's career, he's more Magic Johnson than he really was Michael Jordan. And to me, it's like I not only like get perplexed when people are quick to compare him to Jordan, but you know, it gets annoying because it's like they bring it up just about every year.
Yeah.
Kyrie, to me, has now become that closer for Cleveland. I mean, when it comes to finishing the basket, I feel like nobody does it better than Kyrie Irving. And then you got Kevin Love, who's more of like that down low scrapper. So I feel like Cleveland is set. And they don't necessarily need to go after a Paul George or Jimmy Butler, but if they do, one of those guys has to go. And I feel like Kevin Love might be the one.
Yeah, I think that 3 that they have is legit. They could build around that, but after that, it really falls off. Guys like J.R. Smith had a great Game 5, but you know he's unreliable. Amon Shumpert, can't really rely on him. Darren Williams was like just god awful. You know, he had a good little stretch there toward the end of the regular season playoffs. Terrible. And you look, you know, go further down the line, you're like, what do they have? You know, Kyle Korver was supposed to be counted on to hit some threes. You know, he fell apart. They have a guy like Channing Frye, who can't really find the floor. They were supposed to have Bogut, but I mean, how big of a key can he be when he can't really stay healthy? Yeah. So I think if they stick with that 3 and just try to raise the level of play on the bench, and you know, have those 2 other starters, then they'll be okay. I think they could stay with what they have now and easily make the finals again. And I think something that LeBron making 7 straight finals, that's crazy to me. That blows my mind. You know, my MJ went 6-0 in the finals. You know, Kobe was good in the finals as well, but LeBron's made 7 straight finals. That's crazy.
I thought the Cavs did. I'm sorry, but I thought the Cavs did as well as they did actually to be as competitive as they were, because when you think about it, the Warriors had many more guys that they could rely on consistently than the Cavaliers did.
Yeah. And I feel like that as long as you have LeBron James in your corner, you're always going to be a contender, no matter how old your guys get. Now, if they go after the free agent route, they're going to have to put an emphasis on rebuilding that bench, because the guys like J.R. Smith, Deron Williams, I mean, they're clearly non-factors when it mattered the most. Maybe they might have to rely on the draft to build for there, but then you're putting the pressure on those kids too.
And you're not going to get a high draft pick when you're in the finals every year.
Exactly.
I wonder if LeBron is going to focus on the bench during the offseason, because he tends to
he's the GM.
Voice his, he tends to he's the one who really carries the weight, and he is always looking for a piece he thinks needs to be added whenever they fall short and don't go all the way.
Okay. That's all we got for this week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week with another edition of 805 Sports Talk.